Okay, we have heard about the kind of the apparatus and the things that Don did to the system about screening of aliens generally as they seek immigration benefits. And I want to just deal with one set of visas, which is the F1 visas. These are for students, foreign students. We have about 1 million of them in the country. And let me just tell you about some of the problems that can happen within that particular setting. Now, let me start by saying that having aliens come to the United States to study is a great idea generally. Many of them return with very happy memories of the United States. Few of them go on to be leaders of their own countries. Sometimes we hear the people coming on television who are foreign minister of that or ambassador of that, and they're talking with American accents. That probably is somebody who studied in the United States, and that's all very well. And then I personally, I was never in that agency, but I was a foreign student. I had a Fulbright to New Zealand, had a wonderful time, but left when I was supposed to. Not everybody does that. Many aliens in the United States are, many illegal aliens in the United States come in with F1 visas. There are two broad classes of people who were here illegally. Those that physically cross the border, I call them kind of blue-collar types. And then the white-collar types that come in with a, except I'm wearing a blue shirt, so that doesn't work. White-collar types that come in with a visa. And then they overstay their time or work when they're not supposed to. They're called visa abusers. Within that class of visa abusers, most of them had arrived on tourist visas, or they came in the visa waiver program. A smaller subset, but a significant one, came in with F1 visas as students and didn't leave when they were supposed to, worked when they weren't supposed to, and that's the focus that I want to talk to. I want to talk about how that particular visa has been abused, and there's something like 80 different classes and subclasses of visas. So this is about the F1s. Now, there are probably about well over 1 million of them. The Institute for International Education does a kind of a census of them, gives us some data that the government doesn't. And they found that there were 974,926 foreign students in the traditional colleges and and universities that this organization, it's in New York, it's called the Institute for International Education. It's essentially it's a pro-international education think tank, shall we say. So there are about 1 million of them at any given time, or at least in that academic year, and they don't count everybody because the institutions that are able to cause people to come to this country to be students aren't necessarily all colleges and universities. There are cosmetic schools. There's the big Sioux Aviation School out west someplace. There are horseshoeing schools. There are a great variety of institutions, 10,000 in all, that can issue the I-20, which is a government form that is given to the universities, and then the universities decide who gets it. In Great Britain, that thing is filtered to the government. Not here. We say, okay, Horseshoe University, you may bring in anybody you want, issue them the I-20, this form. Then what happens is that the would-be Horseshoe student or the would-be Harvard student takes that to one of our consulates or embassies around the world and seeks the F1 visa. And then there is a screening at that point by overworked people, which I'm sure you will talk about, as Jessica had been one of them, who very briefly have an opportunity to figure out whether that person is a genuine Horseshoe or Harvard student or not. And there's one case out of 6 or 7 that come to these consulates are turned down, and appropriately so. Now, what we're talking about so far is the one or two, as you suggested, case situation. A student comes in, has manipulated the system, so has a visa, comes to the United States, and then disappears and doesn't go to the university. Okay, but they do this one at a time. Okay, there's no, to my knowledge, there isn't kind of a network that sort of does this, but they do it one at a time, unless they are involved with something that might be called a visa mill, and there are several of these in the F1 world, and these are institutions. I won't call them universities because they're sort of a false front university, and they claim to be a university. They have websites. They have a list of faculty. In most cases, they actually have some classes, but they may have thousands of students on their rolls and classes for only hundreds. There are 5 of these that have sort of come to our attention over the last few years, one of which is in Northern Virginia. All the rest are in Silicon Valley, around San Francisco. The one in this area was called grandly the University of Northern Virginia. It was in Annandale. It was in a 4-story old office building in Annandale. The University of Northern Virginia had hundreds and hundreds of students, it said, maybe thousands. It had 4 classrooms. And that's all there were. There was not a lot of training going on, not a lot of education going on. But the people who came here to one of these institutions, these visa mills, had been through the system, had the I-20, had gotten a visa, had been admitted at a port of entry by the airport people, many of them did not, in fact, study, but they've had these papers that sort of let them in. And again, in these situations, there was a pattern which I still find amazing, which is there are five of these institutions, 2 of which are sort of haven't been quite designated yet, and the University of Northern Virginia, and then out in the West Coast, there was something called Tri-Valley University. And another one that's still there, still working, still granting I-20s, I don't think it should be, called Herguan. Its president, owner, CEO, and founder was sent to jail. Tri-Valley University in California was not only sent to jail for 16 years. She had made millions and millions and millions from this visa mill operation. All 5 of these, for some reason, are managed one way or another by Chinese Americans. 3 of them are for profit, 2 of them are for nonprofit, and they're largely attended by Indian students or students. Sometimes they're students, sometimes they're students. An ethnic pattern which I find puzzling, but there it is. So there we have kind of a mass situation, not a one-on-one situation, and that's something that the unfortunately the Department of Homeland Security is not terribly interested in. I watched the University of Northern Virginia and to see what would happen after it had been raided by ICE, and had been suspended for a bit by Department of Homeland Security from issuing its documents, and then it was restored by DHS, and then finally, some of you are from Virginia, as I am. The Virginia State Higher Education Regulatory Body, which has been asleep since Harry Byrd was governor, finally found that this place out here in Annandale really, really wasn't a university. And so they, with great chagrin, actually closed it down. And then later, Department of Homeland Security, ever faithful, ever protective of our interest, decided that they couldn't issue the document anymore. But it was a peculiar transaction, and the entity which is supposed to deal with these problems is called the Student Exchange Visitors Program, SEVP, and it's a very sleepy part of ICE, which is the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which in turn is part of DHS. But this very sleepy part of the government, SEVP, is in charge of the F-1 visas, and they have practically no field staff, and they have very little get up and go. It's either the U.S. attorneys or state of Virginia that's more energetic in the enforcement. I want to mention one more thing, and then I'll be quiet. One of the things that happens with the F-1 visa is that not only is it abused one at a time by a whole lot of people, not only does it allow for these visa mills, there also is what I call a governmental abuse, and that is the creation of the OPT status. OPT stands for Optional Practical Training. It's for graduates, foreign graduates of American universities. There's no training involved. It's simply a work program. And the Obama administration, the Bush administration, Bush II, created this. The Obamas expanded it. And what it does is that it allows former foreign students, who are now foreign alumni, if you will, to get jobs in the American economy. It's really a foreign worker program without any labor protections or anything, no screening by the Labor Department, for up to 3 years if they are in the STEM fields, which is up to 29 months in the STEM fields, and it will be 36 months soon, I'm afraid. STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. And so these people go well over 100,000, get jobs without any kind of labor market requirements, and so they are doing this work, and the employers love it. One of the reasons the employers love it is because the Bush and Obama administrations have managed to, with a wave of the hand, decide that these folks who are really alumni are still students, and under the law, students aren't covered by Social Security. So if you're a big corporation and you want to hire somebody, some college graduates, and you're faced with an American or green card holder, or you're faced with an alien student, you get a $10,000, $12,000 bonus for hiring the alien. That's the way it works. And I think that's an outrage, and that is what I would call sort of a governmental abuse of the F-1 system.